Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be concentrating on Stave 5 of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, aptly entitled The End of It, as it is the final stave of the novella. So Scrooge wakes up and it's Christmas Day. He is overwhelmed at the chance to put things right. As you'll remember in Stave 4 he realised that if he didn't change, so many bad things would happen to those around him. And he revels in everything he sees and senses. He arranges for a prize turkey to be sent to the Cratchits. On his way to church, he makes a huge charity donation and apologises for his awful manner before, and claims that he's actually back-paying many years of not giving to charity. Scrooge then goes to his nephew Fred's home and asks if he can join him for Christmas after all. He has a wonderful time there, is welcomed by Fred, and they have an absolutely fabulous Christmas together. The next day, Scrooge is in early and is ready to prank Bob. In actual fact, he raises Bob's salary and offers to help pay for Tiny Tim's treatment and any financial support the family need. Scrooge gains a reputation for being a generous and good man. We learn that Tiny Tim survives and that Scrooge actually becomes a positive role model in this young man's life, almost a second father. An absolute transformation from the Scrooge we met earlier in the novel, really up until the end of Stave 4. This is a story about hope and enlightenment. So let's unpick a little further how Dickens shows us that in this stave. The first device that Dickens uses is the delight in exclamation and through figurative language across this stave. We note the shift in this stave's description of Scrooge in contrast to that of Scrooge in previous staves. It emphasises the strength in the shift of his character. And Dickens uses joy and humour here to depict our protagonist, who is light as a feather, happy as an angel, merry as a schoolboy, and even as giddy as a drunken man. With every simile, Scrooge is portrayed as full of life and emotion. The adjectives happy, merry, light, and giddy are not the adjectives we would ever have associated with him anywhere but in this stave. They contrast completely the Scrooge we met in Stave 1, who was miserly, cold-hearted, selfish, and dark. This is a changed man, and it's his transformation that is our sole purpose and fervent desire to understand across this stave. A key moment that shows that transformation is when Scrooge encounters the charity giver. He feels a pang across his heart. He had just insulted that charity giver the day before. Scrooge takes a moment to correct his actions and donates, giving a great many back payments, reflecting his poor attitude to giving and his mean and selfish years of not donating anything to charity. Importantly, Dickens does not allow for Scrooge to accept thanks. Scrooge has now understood that his job is to take care of others without the need for gratitude. That's also reflected by the random act of kindness of getting that prize turkey delivered to the Cratchits. He knows his job is to help others in need, and that is a small token to offer a family who have been loyal to him. That of founder of the feast is now a title he deserves. So as we zoom out of this novel, it's important we wrestle with the true resolution that Dickens presents to us. Dickens closes the novel through the narrator, who highlights how Scrooge knew how to keep Christmas well. And that sentiment is echoed by the idea that he understood that he should not make mistakes that involved hurting others, that he was forgiven and that he had to live life afresh and anew. We're told that he wasn't visited by any more ghosts, suggesting there weren't any chains binding him by mistakes that he later made. It's very pertinent that Tiny Tim closes this novel shouting, "God bless us, everyone." Dickens here is establishing once more the Christian message of this story. Ultimately, we are pushed to reflect on whether Tiny Tim saved Scrooge. That story of desperation. Tiny Tim's vulnerability symbolises so much more than just poverty. It symbolises the desire to be cared for, something that Scrooge can, through his financial support, offer. We are, as readers, critics, and we must question: who is the Tiny Tim of our society? Who is the Scrooge of today? Is the story that Dickens set up for us in Victorian times as relevant now as it was then? Perhaps that is the question that makes this novel so timeless, because I think it would be wrong to say no. So what are the takeaways from Stave 5? It's well documented that Dickens promotes the idea that forgiveness should be given freely, without question, and that we must not dwell on past mistakes. In fact, we should live life anew. Fundamentally, you have to question as a reader whether you believe in Scrooge's transformation. Though it's important that the characters we met in Stave 4 are in Stave 5, aside from obviously the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. And because they are there, changed by the acts of Scrooge, we believe in the change for Scrooge and all the guests who enjoy him and his company. We see the workings of the resolution that Scrooge is working on, supporting the Cratchits and saving Tiny Tim. Ultimately, Scrooge realises that his fulfilment can be found from caring for others, not just preserving his money. And Dickens forces us to question what humanity and care for others looks like in our world, not just for ourselves. The bigger questions with this stave leave us wrestling with what we do next as readers. You could look at this as a simple, symbolic novella that should be wheeled out at Christmas time. Or you could genuinely unpack Dickens's political and social ideas that take a forefront and an impassioned place within the context of this novel. More than anything, we mustn't passively believe that Scrooge is just a caricature. There are elements of his inhumanity at the start of the novel that become humanity at the end. And for us, what is the significance of that shift? And how could we create that significant shift in others that are demonised or caricatured like Scrooge today? Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?